And welcome in, everybody, to yet another episode of Smack Talk here on the Sportskeeda Wrestling YouTube and Sportskeeda Wrestling Facebook pages. My name is Rick Ucchino. I am your host for the evening. For the next hour, we will be answering your questions. We will be taking your comments on what we just witnessed on Friday Night SmackDown. No big returns or anything like that. No major heel turns this week. Can't have it every week, but still a pretty dang good show if you ask me. We got a somewhat explanation from Bayley tonight. We had a very possessed Alexa Bliss, and she pulled out a new move, added a new move to her arsenal. We have a new Firefly Funhouse character. We think we have a good idea who the mystery woman in the mink coat is. Otis hangs on to his Money in the Bank contract again, but not without Miz and Morrison trying to take that bad boy away from him. Might that be leading to something else down the line? We shall see. The IC title feud is heating up very, very, very nicely. And then, of course, we have Roman Reigns and Jey Uso getting the win in the main event tonight over Sheamus and Baron Corbin. No Big E on the show, but apparently we'll be getting an update from his New Day brother, Xavier Woods, tomorrow on Talking Smack. I'm going to bring in my co-host right now. He joins me as always. He is the senior inside journalist here at Sportskeeda, Mr. Tom Colohue. Tom, how are we doing this Friday night, sir? Or Saturday morning for you?
Saturday morning for me. It is 3 a.m. After a pretty good SmackDown, I've got to say I'm doing a lot better than I had been doing in the day before. But it's a wonderful, interesting time to work in my current line of work. There is a crazy, crazy world out there. But what I can say and what I will say very proudly is that this time last week, thank you to everyone who joined, because we broke 25,000 viewers, very nearly hit 26,000, more than 1,000 engagements, which is people clicking like and love. We've already had 5 so far. So thank you to everyone. And we hope to keep bringing you this high quality of show every single week. And over the next hour, hopefully you'll be getting more than enough to whet your whistle to come back every week as well.
Tom, there's one big question that I've actually been meaning to ask you the previous 2 weeks, and I keep forgetting, mostly because, we're getting used to this. We're really starting to get into the swing of things. And again, we'll answer all your comments and questions that you have and try to get them all in. We're in for an hour tonight, so we have until 11 to get there. But Tom, the one big question I've been meaning to ask you, I want to get it out of the way early tonight. Did you have a good time tonight, sir?
You warned me ahead of time. You start asking me this, and I thought, oh, he's forgotten. That's fantastic. Yes, I had a good time. And that's the thing. There was no big turns. There was no big shocks, but it still delivered. There was no Big E. There was no Naomi, but it still delivered. A lot of things happened. I do want to click on a couple of comments immediately. Firstly, Ozzy says, Happy Miro Day. And as 2 big fans of Miro, Happy Miro Day to you, sir. We have Victor Nash saying Sister Bliss, which I just like the sound of. I just like the sound of that.
How about Twisted Sister Bliss?
And we will go on and get with a few more comments as we go and essentially keep track of what's going on there as we run through. But as we only have an hour to get through what was a jam-packed show as per usual, let us get started.
Yes, and I think the biggest thing heading into tonight, at least the biggest question mark, was surrounding Bayley. So why don't we just start there? She kicked off the top of hour number 2 tonight. She came down to the ring, and then they showed a video package when they could have done that beforehand. But I digress. She stands in the middle of the ring. She points. They show the video package of everything that we saw. And then she comes down and she gives her explanation. She said she absolutely enjoyed every second of that beatdown that she gave Sasha Banks last week. Called her out, Tom, for doing everything that we have watched her do subtly, not so subtly over the last few months. The staring down at the title, the kind of throwing Sasha to the wolves, using Bayley using Bayley in certain situations for her personal gain, and Bayley had been giving it right back to her and basically said, hey, look, I've been using her, she's been using me. Eventually she was going to attack me. I got to her first. And you know what? Made a lot of sense. I like storylines that make sense.
Absolutely, and I completely agree with that. It was a case someone was going to betray someone. it felt a lot like the moment between Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho way back in the day. You knew the whole time Kevin Owens was going to turn on Chris Jericho, and they pulled it when you didn't think the time had come. With this, both of them were capable of being the Kevin Owens in that. Both of them were capable of being the great betrayer. There was a betrayal coming. There was always, for years, a betrayal coming, and they had teased it. They'd done a mini betrayal and come back. They'd done this betrayal and come back. They finally did it properly, and this is what sealed it for me. This explanation from Bayley touched all the right notes, and I do feel that even Bayley 1 year ago maybe could not deliver a promo this strong, this good, this impactful. Credit to her, the best promo of the night, and probably the best promo I've heard from Bayley for a long time.
Yeah, just her sitting in the middle of the ring on the chair that she used on Sasha, just deadpan right into the camera. It was very, very, very well delivered. Real quick, I want to pull something up because I don't want to forget to bring it back. James saying, "Am I the only one who thinks Sami Zayn needs to shave his hair and beard? That he looks like a quote unquote hobo." I actually think Sami pulls it off very, very well. Unlike me, I was very fuzzy last week. My hair got really, really long. I made sure to go to the barber, shaved off my mustache, and now I look like I'm 25 as opposed to 32. So I guess that's a good thing in some way, shape, or form. But Tom, I will ask you now that we appear to be on this path. It's going to happen at some point. It's going to be Sasha returning to seek her revenge on Bayley. When do you think that match will actually happen?
I do think right now that Hell in a Cell is the ideal time for it to happen. I just feel we'll get a feud out of the way, essentially, someone filling a spot at Clash of Champions. It looked like it's going to be Nikki Cross, and we've got a few people making comment on Nikki Cross and congratulations. Some people saying, "Oh, Nikki again," because Nikki's been very much in the stakes, as it were, in that feud for a while. But to be fair, when you see a match like we had today, you can see why Nikki Cross is the #1 pick here. There are also, it looks like, people coming back, but no sign of Naomi, no sign of Mandy Rose. It's a bit of a stricken division right now. So I'd imagine we'll get that match at Clash of Champions, and then, yes, moving into Hell in a Cell. For Hell in a Cell, you want a really in-depth, intense feud. You don't get much more intense than this.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of unfortunately telegraphs this match that we are going to get at Clash of Champions. And this #1 contenders match tonight was kind of controversial, shall we say, because they flash it up there and we're getting Alexa Bliss, which was admittedly very exciting. I was waiting to see what Alexa was going to do in the ring as she's going through this character transition right now. Nikki Cross and Lacey Evans and Tamina, and immediately everybody goes, "Where the hell is Naomi?"
Everybody.
She just beat Bayley in a match not too long ago. That should have earned her a championship match, or at least the opportunity to be in a #1 contenders match. So here's the question: where is Naomi? And just as a sidebar, I'm happy that Nikki won the match, but Tom, I can't watch her lose again. I just can't watch her lose her 3rd consecutive championship match.
Well, when it comes to Naomi, it's really hard to say. I have no idea where she is. No idea. I don't know why she isn't getting the push. She had an interview with one of our colleagues, Alex McCarthy, recently, and she seemed in high spirits there. She seemed like she was ready to get back in, raring to go. She did have the win against Bayley. One move to completely defeat Bayley, even after losing a match to Sasha Banks. She showed she can hang with the champion, and we've seen rumors spreading about Naomi. Well, they're ready to finally give her a push. It sure as hell doesn't look like it, because she's not getting this match. Not now.
Right now. And that might be good for her, because if they're going to do Sasha and Bayley at Hell in a Cell, what kind of a push, if any, is that for Naomi for her to get that one match at Clash of Champions? She would lose that match, much like we talked about with Big E last week. It wouldn't really make any sense for him to face Roman Reigns at Clash of Champions because he would lose, and that would be it. So one could say this might be a good sign for Naomi. We just got to practice a little bit of patience here.
Absolutely. We don't want moments like that where people are in for a big match, but at the same time, it looks like Big E wasn't on TV this week. Yeah. It looks like when he does return, he'll still be feuding with Sheamus, which will be going into month 2 of that. I don't personally see that as that strong a push. I don't think Big E has really struggled to defeat Sheamus in the past. They've, in fact, feuded at WrestleMania 32 as New Day versus League of Nations. I don't see that as a push. When it comes to Naomi, if Sasha Banks and Bayley are still feuding, where does Naomi go for her push? Who can she actually compete against? If they do it like they've been doing it with Big E, she'll be beating Lacey Evans, she'll be beating Tamina, she'll be beating Dana Brooke, and then she'll get injured and then fight Dana Brooke again. At some point, you got to pull the trigger, and it looks like this may be a draft job, because she's mentioned previously she has asked to go back to NXT. She was on the shortlist that I've discussed previously, reported even end of last year, as someone who wanted to go back to NXT. So maybe there's your push.
I think the correct move right now is to move Naomi to Raw and tag her with Bianca Belair. You're talking about a tag team tag team division that needs more teams. Naomi has done numerous interviews in the past saying that, the two people she wants to tag with the most, I believe, are Ember Moon and Bianca Belair. So Bianca Belair ain't doing anything right now. Naomi ain't doing anything right now. Hey, let's put them together and put them in that tag team division. Paul with a comment here said he thought Alexa Bliss was actually going to come back down to the match and ultimately win, so she would have a title later on, show her loyalty to the Fiend. Let's talk about Alexa's performance in this match tonight. Very normal to start, and then all of a sudden things dump out to the outside, and she just gets this look on her face. She just gets this trance. She kind of walks over to the corner. She lets Nikki do the double cross body. Then Nikki walks over and then just hits a picture perfect Sister Abigail on Nikki Cross. They cut to commercial, which was a dumb time to cut to commercial. Then we come back and we find out that Alexa just left the match. She had that trance. She walked off. She left the match. Looked very, very possessed. But again, it was just enough to keep me invested in this storyline. And it's the one of the things that I keep looking forward to the most week in and week out is how are they going to progress this Alexa Bliss, Bray Wyatt Fiend storyline. And tonight was a very nice little twist there.
It was. And the fact is they kept them separate while still developing them independently. Now, Paul there has said, so she would have a title to show loyalty to the Fiend. I don't think she really wants to rub it in that he's just lost his. Mm-hmm. I think really she's protecting his feelings a little bit there, but that's interesting in its own way. What I've done is I did post on Twitter a picture from the Disney film Tangled, in which our hero Flynn Rider smolders at Rapunzel, and that for me very much feels like Bray Wyatt wearing his mask, smoldering away underneath in Alexa Bliss's direction, because clearly what they've been doing in the time that Alexa Bliss was kidnapped is practicing Sister Abigail, because man, that was potentially even better than the actual delivery done by Bray Wyatt himself. Really delivered so beautifully, and it's just so magnificently destructive as well, because if you can deliver that, if you can deliver and show what you can do with a move like that, which isn't naturally the easiest move to do, and the smoothness with which man, I'm just essentially celebrating right now the delivery. It's a shame it was on Nikki Cross, but obviously their tag team has been broken up, even though it was technically brought back together briefly, and also added some odds for Nikki Cross to overcome. This wasn't just a win for Nikki Cross. She beat a hell of a lot of odds to do this. Reminded me of when Brock Lesnar was put through the table against John Cena and Seth Rollins at Royal Rumble 2014. Not quite to the same degree,
right?
But still a damn good performance.
Yeah, and I think Nikki was really once Alexa took herself out of the equation, it was really the only option that made any kind of sense whatsoever to move on and face Bayley, because you have Lacey Evans, who has been kind of lying in the weeds lately, but is also a heel. And then you have Tamina, who is, I don't know what Tamina is, but I mean, she had a shot earlier. I mean, you're talking about all three women who have had title shots so far this year. I think we're all kind of ready for something new. We're ready for Sasha Banks and Bayley, no doubt, but you have some other women on the roster who we're ready to see get back into the title picture. Naomi, definitely one that we've already talked about. And there's another one that we want to talk about right now, because we saw another vignette of the mysterious woman in the mink coat, and we saw a lot more of her this week than we did last week. The only thing we did not see was her face, and both of us put on Twitter, which, by the way, you can follow us at Rick Ucchino. My name's spelled right there, and follow him at Colohue. We both said the same thing. That looks a hell of a lot like Carmella.
And in fact, it did. They showed a lot more than I expected this week. Last week, it was just a flash of ankle, as it were, in a mink coat. And at that point, it's very difficult to say anything, really. But now we see things a lot more clearly. Even just the dress sense screams Carmella to me. And while it looks like a reimagining, a Carmella Lena, as it may be, well, like I've made reference to Emelina recently when I first heard about these vignettes. When it comes to things like that, there could be a huge repackaging, or even more likely, we could be going back to the diva personality that Carmella originally had, essentially the heel Carmella, because I liked that Carmella. Mella is money and all that, and when she's actually on her own, that seems to me to be the best way she can do it, because her promos are extremely good. And she really knows who she is when she is playing that character. I would like to see more of that, and I think that's where they're heading.
Another heel turn. It's just I look at the women's division and I'm like, they are really desperately missing that top baby's face. And I'm not saying that Carmella would instantly come in and be able to fill the shoes of Becky Lynch, but they've been trying to find somebody to, and even when Asuka was running as hot as she wasn't quite to the popularity of where Becky Lynch is. Very few get there. But man, another heel turn. It's like eventually you gotta turn somebody face. Maybe by process of elimination, Sasha Banks becomes that top baby face now that Bayley is the one that's going to be staying heel. Or maybe has Sasha Banks kind of just reached this point where she's just Sasha Banks. She's going to do whatever she wants and you can cheer or boo for her.
Yeah, that's certainly an option. And I think really when it comes to Sasha Banks, she is one of those magnificent characters that can fill a lot of different areas. And we've talked about characters like this: Finn Balor, Charlotte Flair, Roman Reigns, who are too big for face or heel. I think Sasha Banks can deliver on that. And I think she could deliver on that in a variety of ways. She could go to any show right now and be the top woman. And she could be that regardless of what alignment. I think like many people are always going to cheer Sasha Banks. And I have no issue with that because she has long since deserved it.
Ryan with an interesting comment here talking about Nikki Cross possibly going over top of Sasha. Now we automatically assume, or Bayley. We are automatically assuming that Nikki is going to lose her third consecutive women's championship match. But could there be a possibility of maybe Sasha showing up at Clash of Champions, maybe costing Bayley this matchup? Because Bayley and Sasha Banks, it's not necessarily a feud that needs a championship. There's enough bad blood here that they could carry that on their own and open up some opportunities for some other women on the roster, particularly Nikki Cross, to get her first women's championship run.
I do agree with that. I think this transcends championships. And I think this is one of many feuds that this does not require it, especially if they are looking at going into Hell in a Cell. You don't need a championship belt for that. You could have it drop off sort of the top tier, and the belt for a while could be a mid-card feud. There's nothing wrong with that. The belt could elevate the person having it instead of the person having it elevating the belt. If it goes to someone like Nikki Cross, you could potentially have that feud with Alexa Bliss. You could have that for a championship. You could have her feud with Naomi out of respect. You could have a feud with Lacey Evans for a little bit, just essentially working both women and giving them a bit of extra time on the card. But that also could mean that when it comes to Survivor Series, we would get Nikki Cross versus Asuka versus Io Shirai.
Oof.
Exactly. That's pretty exciting to me. So I don't feel they need that championship to be involved, but I do feel when it comes to WWE, it will be involved.
Real quick before we move away from the women's division, once again, second week in a row, we've gotten the question, where is Dana Brooke? I don't believe Dana Brooke is the woman in the main coat anymore. Again, we talked about her being a possibility last week. Again, we both definitely think that looks like Carmella. I saw somebody write on Twitter that it might be Kelly coming back. I don't know about that. I wouldn't be mad at it. but I don't believe that. I think Carmella is absolutely the front runner for sure. Ryan wants to know what the update on Sasha Banks is. Sasha Banks is still out of action after Bayley's attack on her last week. I think it will be at least Clash of Champions before we see Sasha Banks show up. May not be until after that match with Nikki Cross. We'll see how things shake up. You are watching episode 3 of Smack Talk here on Sportskeeda's YouTube and Facebook page. My name is Rick Ucchino. Joining me as always is our senior journalist here at Sportskeeda, Tom Colohue, and we have just run down everything that happened tonight in the women's division. I know we're getting a lot of comments about Roman Reigns and questions about Roman Reigns. We will be getting to the main event here in a little bit. Victor, also real quick, right before the women's division, he says SmackDown needs Mia Yim. I'm not going to argue with that. I have a feeling, though, Tom, she's going to end up on Monday night very soon.
I have a feeling, yes. And given that we are talking about SmackDown here, we unfortunately won't be talking about how she may end up on Monday Night Raw, or in fact, how she already may be on Monday Night Raw. What I will say is that SmackDown right now is really missing Ember Moon.
Yes.
Because
wholeheartedly agree.
Exactly. She's just that character, so athletic, so exuberant, and a face who can just deliver in the ring. If she had this championship match, I would be a lot more confident that she would be winning. Not to discount Nikki Cross at all, but this is her third chance in very quick succession, and Nikki Cross does seem to have storylines elsewhere. Hopefully we see Ember Moon back sooner rather than later, but she has said that this is potentially a career-ending injury, so we may not see that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think the last update I saw, she was trying to put off a second surgery, and that was a few months ago, and we haven't really gotten an update since. She said that, I think, on backstage, WWE backstage, before it was canceled. So moving on here to the men's division now, we did not see an interaction directly between Alexa Bliss and Bray Wyatt tonight, but we did get a fairly entertaining Firefly Funhouse segment with, I guess, the big return this week. We said there weren't any. I guess we could count Devil Vince as the big return this week for the Firefly Funhouse. He says he has kind of lost confidence in Bray Wyatt, sir, to run the Firefly Funhouse efficiently or correctly. I don't know. I didn't know the Firefly Funhouse was technically under management, but now there is a new special advisor, Wobbly Walrus. What do we make, Tom, of Wobbly Walrus?
Well, there is a lot to really unpack here, and we'll get to it, because I'm going to need to go through quite a few things. When it comes to the return of Mr. McBossman and the fact that Bray Wyatt reads the dirt sheets. He has proven that many times.
Yeah.
So when he's got Mr. McBossman coming in and saying, I have lost trust in you to run the Firefly Funhouse, it clearly, to me, looks like he's poking fun at people, laughing at the fact that he only had a 1-week title reign. Like, oh, maybe he didn't have any faith in Bray Wyatt. Clearly, to me, is laughing at that. I would also like to spare a little moment for the parrot, persistent parrot. Poor persistent parrot, who managed to live through so many tremendous times and survive some really difficult struggles, only to essentially suffocate in a box.
Damn it, parrot. You just needed to put some holes in there, man.
There's some holes in it. There's some
all you needed.
It happens. The less you know.
At least Mercy got dinner out of it. Everything was fine.
Everything was fine. Everyone got a bit of dinner. I mean, that pig has always got a mess around its snout, and yet never seems to eat anything.
Now the food is going to be quite scarce because we got Wobbly Walrus going on here. Walrus eat a lot.
That introduction slowly rising to the top. There is absolutely
is what nightmares are made of.
That
thing is what nightmares are made of. I got some serious, like, Annabelle level vibes coming out of that walrus puppet. I guarantee you, those of you who can see, there will not be a walrus next to Rambling Rabbit back here. I can guarantee you that thing. I want to be able to sleep in my own home.
Thanks for pointing that out, because now I know it's not hidden just underneath the camera.
Yeah, no,
Rambling Rabbit last week. None of that. Thank you. I want to be able to sleep as well. In addition, this is clearly parody of Paul Heyman. They are not hiding it whatsoever.
Oh,
They made that really on the nose and really to the point. So that certainly continues to paint the picture that the Fiend will be the end game for Roman Reigns. The Fiend will be the final boss, as it were, for Roman. And I think that's the big money feud, but it just might not be the time right now unless someone is moving in the draft.
yeah, and I'm trying to find it because somebody did ask earlier. Yeah, here it is. Who do you think will eventually be the one to dethrone Roman Reigns? I don't think it's going to happen for a very, very long time. WrestleMania at the earliest. But right now, my front runner, is Bray Wyatt. He's mentioned the last 2 weeks now that he no longer has his Universal Championship. So obviously, this time around, now that he's lost it, he is showing that he really, really cares about it and he wants his special toy back. But Bray Wyatt has never, ever been about the quick response, the quick game. He's all about planning. He's very meticulous. He plays the long game. And yeah, I think it's going to be a while before he gets his shot at Roman Reigns. But I do think he's the front runner right now.
I would really appreciate it, though, if you never referred to it as his special toy again. He never used to care about championships. That was a whole part of the storyline with Goldberg, that he didn't care about the championship, so he let it go.
That's what we were led to assume.
That's what we're led to assume. And then in the middle of his feud with Braun Strowman, he made it very clear he was coming for the belt. And it was the Fiend coming for the belt rather than Bray Wyatt, which the Fiend is clearly the leader in this particular element. So the Fiend has become a prize fighter, and that should be terrifying for everyone in the company.
Speaking of people who have their sights set on championships, it doesn't appear that Otis has his sights set on the Universal Championship right now. It seems to be more like he's just defending his shot at it, because now for 2 weeks in a row, we have seen the Miz and Morrison, both of them believe that they got the contract in their hands, only to find out that they have either Otis's dinner or his already half-eaten lunch in their hands. Otis playing mind games, believe it or not, with his lunch boxes, with his briefcase, with his very, very thin contract. I don't know what loopholes the Miz's lawyer plans to find in that contract when it is literally one page. It is one page. It is very, very straightforward. You get a world championship match whenever, wherever you want. That's it. There's not a lot of verbiage there. But the fact that they dropped that line, the fact that they had the Miz say that line, that there is a loophole, and we've now seen 2 weeks in a row where they're trying to get their hands on the contract. Tom, I get the feeling more and more and more that we are never going to see Otis cash in this Money in the Bank briefcase. Eventually, he will lose that contract to somebody else, whether it's the Miz and Morrison or somebody completely different out of the picture. They're really setting up the stage here. I believe that he's going to lose this contract.
It seems almost certain at this point. It's clever storytelling in that they're doing subtle development of the story. First, it was the fact that they were trying to steal it and he wasn't letting them. Now it's the fact that they are trying to find loopholes in it. Today, he made a phone call, which means a number of things could happen. Firstly, we could see the return of the lawyer Tommaso Ciampa, which I feel that would solve a lot of problems.
Thomas Whitney Esquire.
Well played. And secondly, he could be calling in Maurice to try and get hold of that contract as an extra person to outweigh the two of Heavy Machinery. So it's no longer 2-on-2. This could precipitate the return of Mandy Rose, of course. So there are a number of options available. And I think every week we are going to see subtle development here, which is how I like my storytelling. So I think they've done very well with it. The fact that Otis got a singles match this week continues to pick up wins, even though it is quite often against the same people. He looks good in this. But yeah, I completely agree with you. I don't think he's catching in that briefcase. I think either he's losing it or he's simply cashing it in unsuccessfully. Probably the biggest thing we could be seeing in future is the Fiend coming for Otis. Once he can say for certain that there are loopholes, once he can say for certain that that contract can be transferred, because they did say it can't be transferred.
Right.
Even though in the past there has been matches to transfer it, they have said it can't be transferred. Well, here we are now.
Yeah.
We are now in that situation. And if the Fiend finds out, The Fiend's coming for it because there's a route straight to the Wobbly Walrus and straight to Roman Reigns.
Does the Wobbly Walrus have? That's not easy to say. The Wobbly Walrus. Does he have his? Did he pass the bar? Is he an attorney? Can he properly look over that contract? Do you think?
Well, I don't know, but he's certainly in charge of the Firefly Funhouse now.
Yeah,
which is going to make it a lot more difficult when Alexa Bliss comes back to claim what's hers.
He at the very least has managerial skills. Otherwise, Devil Vince, or what did you call him?
Mr. McBossman.
Mr. McBossman would not have put Wobbly Walrus in charge. And that's a very interesting point, because I think that would be a great way to go, because the Fiend could very much pull an eye for an eye. Roman Reigns coming down in at the last second to steal the championship away from him by beating Braun Strowman. They could do something very, very similar where the Fiend pulls a Seth Rollins. He cashes in at WrestleMania and pins Roman Reigns' opponent and steals the Universal Championship away from him, which would be a great way of making Roman continue to look strong even in defeat. So that would be a very interesting way to set that off. And I think it would be a great way to tell that story. And then we can get a summer-long feud between Roman Reigns and The Fiend.
I think so, but it really does depend. There's so much in the air at the moment with a potential draft coming up and everything like that. These are the times when it's really awkward to see what's coming. And you get a lot of news that a week or two later is proven inaccurate because they decided someone's moving, so they're not pushing them, all so on and so forth. It could be that the plan was to go all the way to WrestleMania with these two, but then they've decided someone's moving, so they're finishing it off in 3 weeks. It's really hard to keep track of these things, and cohesive storytelling often takes a bit of a backseat. I don't know what's happening next. Otis could potentially be traded to Raw and be coming after Drew McIntyre. There are a number of possibilities. Would the briefcase transfer with him? Pretty sure it would do, because otherwise what's the point of having someone be Mr. Money in the Bank? But it's a crazy, crazy time we live in. So
welcome to the WWE, where the rules are made up and they don't often matter. Look what Brock Lesnar did. He had the Money in the Bank briefcase. He teased cashing in on either champion for a majority of the summer, and then we saw what happened on the first episode of SmackDown. Things we don't like talking about, him beating Kofi Kingston in all of 8 seconds.
That wasn't a cash in, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. He beat Seth Rollins. That's right. I'm sorry.
He cashed in at Extreme Rules. The important thing to remember there is that Baron Corbin hit Becky Lynch with the End of Days, right. And then only then did Brock Lesnar feel confident in coming in and cashing in on Seth Rollins, because Becky Lynch was out of the picture.
Yeah.
We all know Becky Lynch would have beat the crap out of Brock Lesnar if she'd have still been up, if not receiving the End of Days.
That is the one thing. That is the one, and I know we're tailing off into Raw here. That is the one thing I wish I could have gotten out of that, was just Becky Lynch staring down Brock Lesnar. That's all I needed. That's all I needed. He could have shoved her out of the way. Something could have happened. I don't care. I just needed that face-to-face confrontation. Hopefully we get it one day. So my bad for getting about that whole cash-in thing. Was weird because he won it, and then Rollins won the belt back a month and a half later because he needed an opponent, and I kind of forgot about all of that.
Exactly that. At the beginning of the Extreme Rules show, I literally posted a tweet saying, at this point, Brock Lesnar's going to cash in just to give Seth Rollins a main event match for SummerSlam. End of the show, Brock Lesnar cashes in to give Seth Rollins a main event for SummerSlam. I always love little moments like that.
Yep, and then it happened. So let's move from one championship over to another. One thing that is really starting to get my attention as well is the Intercontinental title picture. And Sami Zayn, man, is all in. He is going after everybody who says that Jeff Hardy is the Intercontinental Champion. He does not believe it. He went to the truck to try to get the graphics torn down. He wanted the referee to announce that this was an exhibition match. Adam Pearce ends up taking him away from the ringside. And if there's one thing that we have learned over the last few weeks, is Adam Pearce cannot hire competent security guards, because Sami Zayn found his way back down to the ring for the Intercontinental Championship matchup tonight between Jeff Hardy and AJ Styles. He causes a disqualification. It's pretty clear where this is going, but I'm excited for this triple threat whenever it does happen. Probably going to happen at Clash of Champions, but Sami Zayn is doing some fantastic work right now.
He really is. The whole Cuban dictator mode that he's got going right now, all that hair with the hat, and just the energy Sami Zayn has always been so high energy. I think everyone can confidently say they expected to see Sami Zayn sneak in the way he did, and I don't think anyone's disappointed that it happened, because good storytelling can afford to be predictable. What we're getting is going to be a very exciting match, as long as Jeff Hardy is, of course, fit to continue. But they've hyped up and amped up the tension between all three men very intelligently. I put a poll out on Twitter just saying, who is your Intercontinental Champion? With 51.4%, it is Sami Zayn.
Damn right. And those 46 other percentage people are wrong. I'm sorry, but you're wrong.
It is 32% Jeff Hardy and 16% AJ Styles. A lot of people.
AJ Styles doesn't even have an argument, but whatever. You all are wrong. There is one true Intercontinental Champion, and his name is Sami Zayn, and I will die on that hill, and I really hope that he's the one that walks away out of all three of these guys with the belt on his waist. Now, do you believe that that's where they're going with this? Is this a way to get the title back on Sami Zayn officially now?
I do believe that. I think that's probably the main reason Jeff Hardy has won the championship to begin with, so that we have a face to line up against Sami Zayn as the heel. It did look a bit jarring when he first was moved away from Sheamus, because it just seemed like it was abandoned. They showed Jeff Hardy with a face paint, and then that's not been followed up on whatsoever. So he's come down, he's wearing his American makeup, respect that, and he goes into the match with AJ Styles. It's quite a brief match, it's quite high flying. Jeff Hardy misses a lot of dives, as is Jeff Hardy's typical way of performing, and it's just, you're always waiting for Sami Zayn to turn up, and he does. Also got to give him credit, just before that, he, much like Retribution previously, managed to force a commercial break exactly when a commercial break was already scheduled.
Pro. Absolute pro.
Just before we move on, I do want to thank the 73 people still with us at the moment. We are going for just under another half an hour. We have 185 people engaged with likes and loves. Please do keep them rolling in, because it helps us to get more viewers and helps us to share, because right now, looking at the numbers we've done in the last 2 weeks, tremendous stuff. Thank you everyone watching. And I've got to say, you would find it very, very hard to find a more popular post show for SmackDown than right here. So stick with us every week, guys.
Yes, really, really, really appreciate it, especially for the launch here. So thank you for everybody. I know Ozzy and Nash and Victor and James, we're seeing some regulars chiming in. Keep coming in with your comments. I promise you, we will get to them. Real quick, I did want to go back to Jeff Hardy, but Reigns and Goldberg at Mania. Victor Nash here. That actually would make a ton of sense. And then, yes, have Bray Wyatt cash in on Goldberg, because then it's killing two birds with one stone, which would be twice as many birds as Bray Wyatt killed tonight.
Good play, good play. Does it make too much sense?
It does. It makes way too much sense.
It is the two birds with one stone. And Goldberg has lost a few matches recently. He won one, lost one this year. Next year, he's down for 2 matches, as he has said that's part of his contract. So if he comes into WrestleMania and loses that one, then it's a bad start. So who are you feeding to him later? Potentially the Fiend again. Right. So that could certainly be a way of doing it. I think it does make too much sense, and I think we may see a return to Reigns versus Goldberg. But if that happens, the Fiend might well be written out.
Yeah, let's not do that.
That's my fear there.
Yeah. Frank with a question. No Retribution tonight. What is up with that? It's been very heavily reported, and I believe it's pretty much a slam dunk now that they are Raw only. They will be causing chaos only on Monday nights, because they are a very organized, chaotic group.
They are a very well organized, chaotic group who like to make sure that they only cause havoc in the right places and make sure that all cameramen are protected at all times. When it comes to Retribution, they have been reported as being Raw exclusive. It is not being confirmed by the WWE yet, but John Pollock of Post Wrestling reported it, and certainly all the evidence does seem to point in that direction. Yeah,
Raw only, not even any pay-per-views. We have not seen them on the last 2 pay-per-views. We'll see if they show up at Clash of Champions, but I guarantee you if they do, they'll only get involved in a Raw storyline. Going back to Jeff Hardy here real quick, Tom, there was a lot of people on Twitter, which, by the way, you can follow both of us at Rick Ucchino, my name's spelled out right there, and at Colohue. A lot of people saying that when Jeff Hardy post-match, he fell down, he collapsed, he was taken backstage. They said he was dehydrated. I'll ask you the question that was thrown out on Twitter. Was that a subtle or not so subtle shot at what we saw with Matt Hardy and AEW's All Out pay-per-view?
It's impossible to say for certain. I think there is enough difference in it. However, when you look at what they've been doing with Jeff Hardy recently, they've been playing really, really close to the chest and really close to life with it. So if they were going to do it with anyone, it'd be Jeff Hardy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it was almost too coincidental.
Yeah.
It just they absolutely left no room to really doubt it. You couldn't, there's no way you can deny it. You could play it as a coincidence. I think we all really absolutely know the truth. Another interesting Jeff Hardy quote, I wish I saw what interview it was with. I saw the headlines. I saw it making the rounds today. But Jeff Hardy says that his dream in WWE, whether it be on SmackDown or on Raw, or where have you, is to bring back his alter ego, Willow, and he wants to feud with the Fiend Bray Wyatt. If you had to put a percentage on that, the possibility of that coming to fruition, what would you say, Mr. Colohue?
I would say the chances of it happening shoot up if Jeff Hardy signs a new contract. Which he at current has not done so. He is still working on the time that has been added to his contract because of injury.
Which I think stretches out into maybe early next year, or do we not know for sure?
It's really difficult to say for sure without knowing the in-depth details of it, or in fact talking to Jeff Hardy about it. I hope at some point we're able to get an interview here at Sportskeeda and ask him that question, because I feel that would be very beneficial to know what may be happening next. But I feel that seemed to be where they were going with Sheamus. That seemed to be the direction they were heading in. And it may be that there is just, and this is pure speculation on my part, it may be that there is sort of a loggerheads at the moment as regards a new contract. And he's saying, look, I want to do this. And they're saying, okay, sign and we'll let you do this. So we will see who bends first. But once again, that is pure speculation on my part at the moment. The only thing we can say is that he has not signed a new contract, or at least it's not being announced that he has signed a new contract. So I think the chances of a feud with the Fiend, particularly one for the championship, become much more likely if he signs and much more unlikely if he continues to not do so.
Philip with a question here. When do we know when the draft is? All I've heard is next month, sometime in October. At least that's been the rumor, shall we say. So they haven't announced an official date to my knowledge.
They haven't. Triple H has essentially confirmed their draft is happening in a conference call, but until then it was just a rumor, as it were. Nothing had been officially confirmed, and to this day nothing has actually been technically officially confirmed. But based on rumor mill and the information coming out of the company, when it comes to the Amway Center and the fact that their contract runs until the end of October, at that point they can renegotiate and try to get fans in the building. If they can get fans in the building, they will wait until then to do the draft. Until that point, they will wait and see. I feel this may be why we've seen Hell in a Cell pay-per-view move from the beginning of November to the end of October, so that it is guaranteed to be in the Amway Center, and it may be being moved around a draft.
I actually kind of like that too, because then there's not two pay-per-views happening in November. I mean, it kind of spreads things out a little bit more evenly. I'd like to think maybe that was part of the reason for going in there, but yeah, you're probably right. It's more having to do with guaranteeing that it's inside the Amway Center and seeing where things shake out and possibly setting up the draft.
I'm sure it's multiple things at once. I'm sure that played into part of it, but it's worth remembering there was originally going to be a Saudi Arabia pay-per-view.
That is true as well.
Which would mean they have to spread things out a bit further, and then of course there was unlikely to be a Payback pay-per-view based on that, because they needed that overflow pay-per-view to have so many matches at SummerSlam and so many matches at Payback. They didn't want to have all of those matches on one show because they just wouldn't have given people enough time. This has changed since there is no Saudi Arabia show. It looks like this year. And so the planned Saudi Arabia show will move into next year, and we should have 3 next year if they can have shows next year. So yeah, it looks like they're just balancing the shows out a little bit more because they don't have to fit an extra show in.
So 2020 is not all bad, is what you're saying. We're not we're not going to have to deal with another Saudi Arabia pay-per-view.
That really depends. I've got to say 2020 has been a kick in the teeth for a lot of people, me as well as anyone. I currently unemployed, technically have this job, but I'm hopeful that I can turn this into full-time, because otherwise it's just going to be kicking the teeth after kicking the teeth, 2020, yay.
Yeah, everything sucks. Anyway, at least we have this program, Smack Talk, here every Friday night after Friday Night SmackDown. That makes sense. Every Friday night after Friday Night SmackDown. Right here on the Sportskeeda YouTube and Sportskeeda Facebook page. I am Rick Ucchino. He is Tom Colohue, the senior journalist here for Sportskeeda. Philip has a question about Tessa Blanchard. What is going on with her? I did see a report today. I believe it was out on No DQ is where I read this, that Impact said that she was fairly certain that she did not re-sign with them because she had a better offer elsewhere. I don't know the validity of that report. That is the last thing that I have heard, but we haven't seen her show up since she left Impact. I don't know where she's getting that better offer. Tom, you look like you have something to say on this one.
Just to be clear, Impact did not say that she looked like she was getting a better offer. A report was made, I believe it came from the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Please, if I am wrong, do let me know. But it was a report from a wrestling journalist who said that Impact believed she had a better offer, and that is why she was let go when she was. I, again, do not know the validity of that and haven't been able to chase up. I don't have contact in Impact Wrestling. I just don't.
Yeah, there's Tessa's just one of those. There's probably going to be some rumors that are going to pick up every now and again. You'll hear a little nugget about her here or there. But man, until she shows up, just who knows? Kind of like with Miro in AEW, honestly. Like,
yeah,
we heard very, very little about him, and then all of a sudden, boom, there he is next to Kip Sabian on Wednesday night.
And people are shouting Miro Day. With Tessa, she is wrestling tomorrow, or at least tomorrow your time, because it's today my time. So she is wrestling for Warrior Wrestling against Kylie Rae, defending a championship there. I would be very interested to see if she loses that championship, because that may suggest her next step. Also, Kylie Rae, I believe, is in Impact at the moment, so it could be an interesting meeting of the minds there. But that is something on Fight TV if you want to check that out. When it comes to long term, I don't know who she may have signed with. I don't know if she may have signed already. It's very, very difficult to say. I've reported previously that people have been talking to Vince McMahon about signing Tessa Blanchard. So if she did have an offer on the table, it may well be that the WWE had been putting something forward. We'll have to wait and see, because it did sound like Tony Khan was writing a line under it and saying that is not happening. Who knows?
We shall wait and find out together, good sir. Let's talk about the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, who have now entered into a program with the Raw Tag Team Champions, which, hey, if that gives me an avenue to talk about Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins, I am all for it. That is one of the downsides of only being able to talk about SmackDown, is I can't talk about my boys, the Street Profits, but now they show up on SmackDown tonight, and they invade the Champions Lounge. They throw a very non-COVID safe party backstage, and they distract Shinsuke and Cesaro. They get the dumb babyface treatment, end up losing a match to Lucha House Party. That was a very long distraction tonight. It was incredibly dumb for Cesaro to just stand there in the middle of the ring like, oh my God, what are they doing to my backstage lounge? And then, yeah, he gets rolled up and pinned. Whatever. Lucha House Party gets a win. It advances the storyline forward. But my question is, Tom, is this finally happening? Is this leading to something that I have been championing? I can't even say it right. I've been pushing for this to happen for months. I said this back in October, and everybody looked at me cross-eyed. Now all of a sudden they put these two teams in on Raw, and everybody's going, hey, they could unify the tag team titles. And I'm like, you mother, I've been on this for a long time, and now everybody thinks it's a great idea. I still think it's a great idea. Do you think ultimately they're leading to a point now where the tag team division, shaped up the way it is, they just probably lost another team with the injury to Ivar on Monday. Hopefully he's okay. He's not going to be out long. But they have tag teams dropping like flies on both programs right now. Do you ultimately think this is going to lead to a title unification?
I do not. And I think with the draft coming up, they just need to shift some of the tag teams which are on SmackDown over to Raw to balance it out, because Raw has, what, 4 tag teams?
Active?
Active. Street Profits, Andrade and Garza, Viking Raiders.
Well, Viking Raiders may not be active anymore. Are Angel and Garza a tag team? Who the heck even knows?
They may have broken up at this point, so that leaves Street
Mysterios
Profits.
were injured. And like I said, that's kind of why I'm thinking they put Cedric in the Hurt Business so they could create another tag team. But ultimately, I think you have all of these guys who are hurt right now, or other tag teams that have split up. If they're not unifying the titles, that's why they're fighting Shinsuke and Cesaro right now. But doing it this far close to Survivor Series, where we're going to get, the tag team champions possibly meeting up again, just throw in NXT, makes me think maybe there'll be a title change somewhere along the lines. But yeah, it could just be a case of everybody's getting hurt. They got to have something to do for these guys.
It could very well be a case of that. And really, do you want to unify titles and then everyone comes back and you just end up with 15, 16 tag teams, as it were?
I actually laid this out on my Twitter, by the way. I'm not going to go dig it up, but I laid it out to where I had 9 solid tag teams that you could run through all 3 shows, because I still believe that you should unify all 3 tag titles and just have a set for the men and a set for the women, and that be it. So if you want to see it, I laid it all out because we don't have time. We only have 10 minutes left. Follow me on Twitter at Rick Ucchino. Go find it. I laid it all out. It makes sense in my mind. Dang it.
Well, what I've been trying to say this whole time is that I feel there are too many tag teams on SmackDown at the moment, especially when you look at, yes, you've got Cesaro and Nakamura, you've got Lucha House Party, you do have the Forgotten Sons there somewhere, you have New Day, you have the Usos, you also have other teams such as Heavy Machinery and Miz and Morrison. If, for example, you move Miz and Morrison over and Heavy Machinery over, suddenly you have 2 cohesive tag team divisions, 5 or 6 teams on each brand. That's enough for a year. 6 teams for me.
I can get behind that. I get the problem is you don't have some of those guys active right now. The Usos aren't active. The New Day's not.
Exactly.
Who knows where the Forgotten Sons are right now? There was some backstage dealings with them. Who knows if they're even coming back, to be completely honest with you. So that's why we've seen match after match with Cesaro and Nakamura and Lucha House Party. The obvious progression here would be to go to the Heavy Machinery.
Yeah.
They just got to win last week over Miz and Morrison, but no, they're continuing this thing with Miz and Morrison. So maybe they got to take the briefcase off of Otis before they officially go back into the tag team division. But yeah, it seems like there was you could go Profits and the Hurt Business could have been one, and then you could have gone Heavy Machinery into Shinsuke and Cesaro, but they decided to have the tag champ battle.
I think this is very much just because Monday Night Football's coming back and they need a big draw match. I think it's needs must. I don't think it's a sign of things to come. Fair.
I'm still holding out hope. Dang it.
Just before we go on, Philip has asked, where's Mandy Rose? Haven't seen her on television for a few weeks. Any updates? No update I can give. At this point, Mandy Rose, we haven't seen her for a while. We haven't essentially seen her since SummerSlam. She should ideally have kicked on immediately after that, celebrated a big victory, and gone into the next phase, whatever that may have been. I believed at the time it would have been a SmackDown Women's Championship, but that did not happen, or at least hasn't happened yet. We haven't seen her for a while. So it could be a number of things. There are obviously some personal things that happened that she experienced, which I really hope she is okay, and we do at Sportskeeda wish her all the best, as well as if anyone else who has suffered similarly. But at the moment, there are just no updates we can give, and it's not something that I feel we should be chasing up at the moment, because if she does want to step away, all power to her.
When she's ready to come back, she'll be back, and who knows, maybe she's the one that gets the big push after Sasha and Bailey do their thing. We shall see how everything shakes out. Real quick, Tom, because we are running out of time, let's get into tonight's main event program, which features the Universal Champion Roman Reigns and his cousin Jey Uso. It really seems like they're setting this up, and I'm loving everything that they are doing with this bloodline lineage, cousin making the family proud thing. I talked about that ad nauseum last week. They took another step forward with it this week. My question is there any hope that this is kind of an audition for Jey Uso to see what he can do as a singles competitor? Because they mentioned tonight that this is not only his first Universal Championship match, it's his first opportunity at a singles title. Is there any chance that we get a decent match out of these two, or is this just going to be Roman Reigns sacrificing his cousin?
I think he'll get a decent match, but I don't think it's really an audition. Jimmy and Jey Uso have both said in interviews in the past they do not wish to be singles competitors. They are very happy in the tag division, and you need people to essentially champion the divisions that they're in. Not necessarily to be champions, but to be waving the flag, flying the banner as is of tag team wrestling. You need the Usos. If you want quality tag team wrestling in the WWE, you need the Usos. You can't split them up in the same way you still have to have the New Day. For a year, we talk about there being not much going on in the tag division. For a year, we had the New Day versus the Usos until 2 months before WrestleMania, the Bludgeon Brothers got involved. And it was one of the most entertaining periods of tag team wrestling in history. It was tremendous and very high quality. So I don't think it's an audition per se, but I do think we will get a match, even though by the end of it, Roman won't just stand tall, he will stand dominant.
The only thing that makes me think that this is going to be a complete squash is just the way that they have booked Roman Reigns, in where he has done literally the bare minimum, like less than what Brock Lesnar does.
Yeah.
He showed up at not SummerSlam. He showed up at SummerSlam at the end of the match, took everybody out, and then at Payback, he shows up at the end, he hits a couple of spears, and it's over. He's the Universal Champion. And now tonight, Jey Uso does some great in-ring work. Roman tags himself in, hits a spear, gets the win, match over. It is literally doing the bare minimum, showing up, wrecking everybody, and leave. He is living the motto that is printed out on his chest. And it's I'm sure it's just designed to get as much heat on him as possible. But it makes me feel bad for what might happen, what might go down to Jey Uso at the pay-per-view.
I think it's supposed to be honest. I think you're supposed to have that feeling of foreboding. I think they're intentionally trying to evoke memories of Brock Lesnar. I think they're doing it very, very successfully by doing that. And I think long-term, this is very different for Roman. Also, the fact that he's doing so little means that he can get away with wrestling in a t-shirt, because he doesn't have to hide the belt too much if he's not doing that much work. It's also quite a powerful moment for Jey Uso, because he won that match. He won that match. He had Sheamus beat. He had Sheamus and Baron Corbin beat.
That's a former world champion and a guy who should have been world champion by now.
Exactly. Two of the most pushed guys in wrestling. Sheamus has had multiple world title runs. Baron Corbin, since his debut, has been one of the top guys in the WWE, certainly one of the most trusted. And here we are now, when essentially he's getting beaten alongside Sheamus by Jey Uso. So a great look for Jey Uso, but then to have that taken away from him by Roman Reigns, it's an interesting one.
Real quick, because I know we're running out of time, I want to get a couple of comments here. Victor, new Shield, Reigns, and the Usos. I would absolutely love that trio, and I would throw in Naomi, to be completely honest with you.
Same, I've said the same.
And could you imagine a faction of Roman Reigns where he's the Universal Champion, the Usos are the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, and Naomi is the SmackDown Women's Champion? Talk about domination. I would love every single second of that. Roland says that the Usos will never make it as single stars. I'm not saying that they're going to make it as single stars, but what I really love about them using Jey Uso in this is every single time that there is a tag team and one partner gets hurt, the other one gets taken off of television. And I hate that. Jeff Hardy gets hurt right after the Hardy Boys won the tag team titles. Matt Hardy disappears. You had one half of AOP that got hurt and the other one disappears. I hate that they do that. It's not fair to the other competitor. And yes, Revival as well. Jimmy Uso gets hurt. We have not seen a whole lot of Jey Uso, but they decided to use him, and that makes me very, very happy. We appreciate the 84 people who are still watching right now, everybody who has commented, everybody who has liked, who has shown us a little bit of love here. We really, really appreciate that. Tom, any final thoughts before we wrap up this week?
Just quickly, because I know he's asked the question quite a few times and I don't want to leave you hanging there. Ozzy says, why are they calling Roman the tribal chief? For a bit of marketing, will look good on t-shirts, could potentially lead to a faction. Basically,
with presumably the Usos. So any final thoughts on what we've seen out of SmackDown these last 3 weeks and what we saw in particular tonight, sir?
I think this is probably the weakest of the 3 weeks as it goes to SmackDown, but that's not a bad place to be when it's this high quality. SmackDown has become the A show of WWE, particularly since the return of Roman. But even before that, the second The Fiend kidnapped Alexa Bliss, a lot of people were so much more excited for SmackDown. Bayley still operated a draw segment straddling the hours. It'll be interesting to see the ratings there. But all of the top storylines for me personally are on SmackDown right now. Would you agree with that?
I wholeheartedly agree. Alexa Bliss, The Fiend, Roman Reigns, Sami Zayn. I get excited when SmackDown comes on, and I am damn happy that I get to cover Friday Night SmackDowns here for Sportskeeda, YouTube, and Facebook. I've been Rick Ucchino. That is Tom Colohue. We will be back next Friday right here taking all of your questions, comments, concerns. Let's have a good time next week. Tom Colohue, what do you say?
Okay.
Take care. Good night, everybody.